My name is Brenda, and this is History Cole's Notes. So, why did the Pilgrims come to America? Well, let's start with who they were. The Pilgrims were a group of English subjects who decided to go to America to seek religious freedom during the reign of King James I. During this reign, which was 1603 to 1625, England saw the rise of the Puritan movement that started during Queen Elizabeth I's reign. At this time, the Puritans started to clash with the authorities of the Church of England, and this led to them starting to feel alienated. Now, James, he was brought up in Scotland under the influence of strict Scottish Calvinistic tutors who wanted to ingrain into him a commitment to the Protestant cause in Scotland. So when James became the king of both England and Scotland, he sought to keep the Church of England strictly under his rule and his power. He started to suppress many of the very important aspects of the Puritan movement, which included their views on church government. Under James's rule, the Puritan movement coexisted with the conforming of the Church of England in what was generally an accepted form of the Protestant religion, but this balance started to get disrupted when the church started to shift their views away from Calvinism. Some of the Puritans never accepted King James's settlement of these religious affairs, so they decided to make a pilgrimage where they thought they'd be free to worship. For many of them, they moved to the Netherlands, and here they enjoyed the peace and the liberty that they wanted. So, the next question is, why leave the Netherlands since they had the religious tolerance there? Well, according to many experts, it was for money. Like tens of thousands of others, the Pilgrims were economic migrants. After working for the Dutch textile industry, many of the Pilgrims possessed very little other than that freedom of religion. They went from farmers who supported themselves to complete poverty, working long hours for very low pay. Their financial hardship made it so difficult for them to convince other Puritans to join them, no matter how badly the religious freedom was being suppressed. Then came the collapse of the wool market, the start of the 30 Years' War, and the imminent end of the truce between Spain and the Dutch Republic. This threatened their safe haven. So their population started to dwindle, and their fears started to rise that maybe the Dutch society, who were tolerating their beliefs, would end up corrupting the morals of their kids. The Pilgrims, they also wanted their children to be English citizens and not belong to the Dutch. They couldn't go back to England due to they wanted their freedom to practice their religion how they chose, so that's why they decided to go to the colonies in America, which under that time was under England's rule. The Pilgrims, they thought that the New World would give them great economic stability, would preserve their English identity, and give them the opportunity to convert the local indigenous population to their beliefs. Now, most of you guys have likely heard that the Pilgrims came to the New World on a ship called the Mayflower. But what most people don't realize was they weren't alone. Corporations seeking profit launched England's first commercial outposts in the New World, and these guys loved the Pilgrims. They saw them as the ideal candidates to go into the New World and start a colony, since they were industrious and accustomed to hardship. After the Pilgrims received permission from the Virginia Company to establish a settlement in their area, a group of 70 London businessmen supplied the finances for the Pilgrims to move to the New World. This included paying for the Mayflower, its crew, and a year's worth of supplies. But to the dismay of the Pilgrims, who were very close-knit, they were forced to take fellow economic migrants with them who had a shared interest in this venture. These strangers, as Pilgrims called them, took up half of the space on the ship. Now, after arriving, the Pilgrims were not as successful as they once hoped. Their colony barely survived their first brutal winter in the New World, and the Mayflower, it ended up returning without the fur, the timber, and the fish that the investors expected. Eventually, the Pilgrims' colony did gain its financial footing due to the fur trade. Back in England, people couldn't get enough of the beaver pelts, which was being used to make little hats and other fashion accessories. But soon, other people came looking for those same pelts, and competition started cutting into the Pilgrims' bottom line. They were able to pay off their travel debt by 1648, but ultimately, they suffered the fate of many small businesses today. Their business was consumed by a larger and more successful corporate entity when it merged with other colonies to form the province of Massachusetts Bay in 1691. Thank you guys so much for watching, and be sure to hit that subscribe button and click that notification bell so you can join us for more History Cool Notes and have access to all the great content that you can find on the Horrifying History channel. Also, be sure to follow us on social media to get even more amazing content, be the first to hear about what's coming up, and to have access to some awesome contests. You will find links to our social media in our show's notes. Thanks again for watching, and until next time.